Assalamu alaikum students, how are you all? I hope you all doing well. So as you people know that we have gone through from first two parts of history of English literature, and today we are going to start the third part of of the history of English literature. So let's start with the late 19th century today, the critical realistic period. If you will just ponder upon the very title of this slide, critical realistic period, it means that now the people, now the literature, now the critics were more realistic to their life, towards life, okay, and the literature that was produced was also based on reality more than the kind of metaphysics and those things. So what was the social background that was going on over there? The struggle between work class and capitalist. It means that no, the very lower class was the it means that now the very lower class was over there. So there were Okay, so what was the social background over there? The struggle between work class and capitalist, the Chartist movement, the Victorian morality. Victorian morality was over there, and the basic things or basic social background. If you want to see the social background of late 19th century, Mill on the Floss and Tess of the Dear Beavles is the best example. If you people will go through those novels, they are the best representation of late 19th century, and you will basically get to know what Victorian morality was at that time. The literature fiction is the highest achievement with Dickens as its representative. So Dickens was the first who have taken that fiction to the highest point. That is why he is known as the representative of fiction achievement. Critical realism was over there. Now, what critical realism was? Striking to Sticking to the faithful representation of the 18th century realist novel, to the critical realists carried their duty forward to the criticism of society and defense of the mass. They were all concerned about the fate of common people. Common people. Now, wait for a while and think about the very thing I have told you in the very start of our video, that they were now more concerned about common people, common man, their miseries, their psyche, their depressions. The people, the literary figures, they have started to talk about the problems of a common man. Their truthful picture of people's life and bitter and strong criticism of society had done much in awakening the public consciousness to the social problem and in the actual improvement of society. It means that now the people were more conscious about themselves. Just to say that if a person is is just taken for granted by someone or by the upper class, and he or she is not even aware of that, so it means that in that era the literary figures or the renowned persons or writers or authors who were writing the stuff, they were writing about their problems, and their writing was a kind of you can say tool that helps that helps the common people to be conscious about themselves, about their problems, about their psyche, about the miseries, about who they are and why they are surviving like that. Now, the first one was the Charles Dickens, Oliver Twist about the dehumanizing workhouse system and the dark criminal underworld life. So, Charles Dickens' most prominent work was Oliver Twist. It is about the dehumanizing work, house system, the dark criminal underworld life. David Copperfield concerned about the debtor's prison. A Tale of Two Cities is the most prominent work by Charles Dickens, and it is very much beautifully written. I'll suggest you people to read it. Must read it because it's about French Revolution, and French Revolution in itself is an epic. It is not an epic. I'm just saying to enhance it. It was like whatever I am just uttering, it's like an hyperbole. As a master storyteller, character portrayal is the most distinguished feature of his work, and there's no doubt because in Tale of Two Cities, he has just done totally perfection to his characters. He has portrayed all the characters to extent. Thackeray's Vanity Fair subtitle novel without a hero, a description of the evils of the super society. How interesting it is. So it was a novel without a hero, and he has just again reveals the evils of the society, what the upper class is doing with the lower class, and how they are suffering in their lives. Charlotte Bronte and her Jane Eyre, The Struggle for Basic Rights and Equality, Emily Bronte and her Wuthering Heights, The Passionate Love. Again, Bronte is again, talking about the struggle and basic rights and equality of common man. George Eliot and her Meal on the Floors, again the best work by George Eliot, and when you people gonna read it, you gonna love it. Poets. Tennyson and Browning. Tennyson is the most representative, if not the greatest Victorian poet. In Memoriam, Memoriam is just beautiful. The Eyeless of the King, Browning as the most original poet of his time. His name is often associated with the term dramatic monologue. Okay, so Tennyson was one of the poets who just left the world too soon, and his works are just awesome. Browning, again the realistic poet, because the original poet. Why? Because he has risen up many topics about the society, and he has just created original themes in within his writings, his poems, and his poems are just love, especially the poems, the songs of young age and old age, and his work is just awesome. So what's a dramatic monologue is? Basically, dramatic monologue is to talk to yourself while you are just standing in front of the audience on the stage, and might be possible you are not saying anything, but the audience knows that. Okay, to make it more clear, let's read it. Dramatic monologue. In a dramatic moment or crisis, the characters are made to talk about their lives and about their minds and hearts. In listening to those one sided talks, readers can form their own opinions and judgments about the speaker's personality and about what has really happened. Most of the time, even while we are just watching any kind of Pakistani dramas, when a character is just talking to herself or himself, and while they are alone and they are just talking in their mind or in their head, and the audience knows that, we don't know very well that while this character is just thinking evil things or about good things. So on that thing we judge that character, and we don't know while that character is a positive one or a negative one. I hope it's quite clear to you till now. Literary trends at the end of the 19th century were naturalism, neo-romanticism, aestheticism by Thomas Hardy. Okay, these were somehow introduced by Thomas Hardy. Inshallah, I'll make another video about all the isms that are going on in literature. So, but what was the naturalism? Literature must be true to life and exactly reproduce real life, real things, natural things, including all the details without any selection. Naturalists usually write about the lives of the poor and oppressed or the slum life. No, just look at the words. First, people started talking about the lower class, about their rights, about the equality, about the miseries, or about the injustice that was going on by the upper class to them. And now the naturalists, they even talked about the slum life, their oppression, their poverty, their problems, and that's just awesome. Now, neo-romanticism, dissatisfied with the drab and ugly social reality and yet trying to avoid the positive solution of the acute social contradictions, the writers laid emphasis on the inventions of exciting adventures and fascinating story. They led the novel back to the storytelling and romance. Why? Now the question rises, why? The reason was because now the literature that was produced in that era was full of psychological oppression. That was full of depression, that was full of pessimism. So that is why a neo romanticism movement was produced, and Neuromanticism, they started to produce exciting adventures in the story, and and again the storytelling was on the verge. Stevenson's was a representative with Treasure Island and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hate. Aestheticism, theory of art for art's sake. Art should serve no religious, moral, or social end, nor any and accept itself. Oscar Wilde and Walter Peter. So this was the theory that was presented by them. Now, what aestheticism was? Aestheticism basically derived from static player. Okay, so in simple words, they were more focusing about our art should give us static pleasure. That's it. No kind of religious, moral, or social, and no kind of other thing. Art for art's sake. Okay. Hardy. Wessex novels about character and environment, the description of vicissitude of the people who live in an agriculture setting menaced by the force of inventing capitalism. The return of the native is just beautiful one. The mayor of Castor Bridges and other wonderful work by Hardy. Test of the Weevil, as I have told you before. Judge of Obscure, Hardy is often regarded as a transitional writer. Why? Because he has taken his works or his opinion more close to nature, more close to the social background of the society. Okay, so this period is covered up till now. I hope it's quite clear to you. Now let's talk about modern period, the 20th century. Now, what was the social background over there? If the late Victorian period was full of oppression, nothing for a while, what would be there in the modern period? Even right now, we are living in modern era. What's going on over here? It's more oppressed. It's more. It's having a lot of psychological problems. It's more. There's more poverty. There are more pessimism over here. Why? Because again, the injustice by the upper class is here. Let's talk about the social background. The gap between the rich and the poor. Now, the very first line is what I wanted to convey to you people. The gap between the rich and the poor, the post war economic dissolution, and the spiritual disillusion. The very core of this age was disillusionment toward the spiritual God. Spirituality is just shattered. If you are going to read Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, you people would come to know how much shattering world is there in modern period, and that is just superb by T.S. Eliot. The rise of all kind of philosophical ideas was there. Karl Marx scientific socialism, Darwin's theory of evolution, and Nietzsche's pessimism was there. And again, Nietzsche's nihilism was over there. Literature, modernism rises out of skepticism. Again, everything is just shattered, everything is just spectic over there, and disillusion of capitalism takes the irrational philosophy and the theories of psychoanalysis as its theoretical base. Why the psychoanalysis was on its theoretical base? Because it was all about the psyche of a human being. It was all about the psyche of upper class. It was all about the psyche of the lower class. why they are suffering from the injustice of upper class. Okay, so realistic novels in 20th century were the continuation of the Victorian tradition. The outstanding figures are John Glassworthy, H.G. Wells, and Arnold Bennett. Within strong swing of lefticism. Now, what lefticism is, we'll discuss it in the next video, inshallah, in detail. In the 1930s, novelists began to turn their attention to the urgent social problems. In the mid 1950s, the early 1960s, there appeared the angry young man. Now, what the angry young man is? Launching a bitter protest against outmoved social and political values in their society. Kingsley Amis is the most important one for that. Modernism in fiction. The first 3 decades of this century were golden years of the modernist novels. The theory of Freudian and Jungian psychology psychoanalysis played an important role. D.H. Lawrence traced the psychological activities in his works. Sons and Lovers is the most striking features towards the psychological love or psyche of sons and lovers. Woman in Love, Lady Charlotte's Lover. Stream of Consciousness School of Novel, James Joyce and Virginia with the most prominent term. And if you want to thoroughly understand stream of consciousness, Mr. Chips is one of the best example for doing that. Drama in 20th century, basically stream of consciousness. Let me explain just a bit. Stream of consciousness is basically when the things are not in sequence, when the events are not in sequence, and you just just like the definition of Wordsworth, overflow of powerful emotions, and just your emotions rise, and you told the story about your life, and events are not in sequence. It is really a good example. Mr. Chips is just written in the form of stream of consciousness. All right. Drama in 20th century is Bernard Shaw is considered the best known of English dramatist since Shakespeare. His plays are inspired by social criticism. John Galsworthy carried on the tradition of social criticism, the Irish movement that have been started by them. Modernism in drama, the working classes drama and the theater of the absurd. In theater of absurd, you people can read the drama or even watch the movie Waiting for Godot. That is the best representation of theater of absurd. Absurdism was at its peak in modernism. Asborn and the Angry Young Man, Samuel Beckett and the Waiting for Godot. Again, the thing that I have told you people. And modernism in the poetry revolution against the conventional ideas and forms of the Victorian poetry. The poems of Eliot and Yeats. Again, as I have been told you people, the Wasteland is one of the best example of the poetry of modernism. The rise of the modern poetry. So that was all. We have completed our history of English literature till modern period. I hope all the things, all the pros and cons are clear to you till now. If you people have any kind of questions, do comment and ask. Inshallah, I'll try my best to make video